From a radio studio on Long Island, New York, come two die-hard fans of the greatest rock and roll band hailing from Hollywood, California. Dissecting all things Guns N' Roses and anything else in their distorted minds, it's Brando and Scotto.
'Cause you know what the fuck you are!
And this is Appetite for Distortion.
Try it again!
And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, with me, Brando. With me, as always, I couldn't do this without him, is Scotto, Ian, drinking water as I'm throwing to him.
And also, as you said, with me, Brando.
I say that?
You are Brando.
I'm a piece of garbage.
Just keep it, man.
I know. That was our third take of this.
I'm going to, rip apart the third curtain where,
The fourth wall?
Fourth wall, they say, where we already did, 2 takes. And I'm like, no one cares. Let's just start this goddamn podcast.
I know. I'm used to having an energy drink in the morning, and I haven't had it. And it's so bad. I've become so reliant on it. I feel like not woken up, even though I've been up for a few hours.
Yeah, we're recording a little earlier than usual because Anthony Bozza, co-author of Slash's book, among many other books, is joining us. And the reason he wanted to do a little earlier is because he's taking a plane to Nashville, Tennessee,
Lucky bastard,
to see Guns N' Roses tonight.
I mean, we're talking to people. You know, we spoke to Jason before our last episode from Rotten Cake.
Yes,
he
sir.
saw their first the first show of the stadium tour in Detroit. You know, now we're going to talk to Anthony, who's going to see them tonight. We have 2 weeks. It's officially now, because we're taping this Saturday. 2 weeks on the 23rd, we're going to see them at MetLife Stadium. This is going to be awesome. This is I can't wait, and I might be able to getting tickets to the 24th. We will see about that. And if I do, you're going with me. That's just
really.
That's just
all right.
All right.
I can't really turn that down.
All right. So we'll see. I have to get those tickets first. So yeah, thank you. This is the third episode for Appetite for Distortion, Guns N' Roses podcast, rock and roll, anything our stupid Jew humor minds come up with, which is mainly just me because Ian's a lot more focused than I am. I ain't take my medication today either. That's the problem. I need my Cymbalta. That's my problem.
You know what I wanted to start with? I mean, obviously, Steven Adler, we got to start with, but
we want to thank. That's where I was going. I want to thank in addition to just to Ian to keeping me focused. The reception that we've gotten from social media and iTunes, just a couple. I mean, we're being sincere of just mentioning just a few because it's too many to name because we have a lot to get to. I can't even say this guy. It's all usernames. We don't know these real people. They're all. I don't think they're catfishing us. I think they really like the podcast. Is Aslete, ASLATIE from my GNR forum, and he said it's one of the best podcasts he's ever heard.
It was the best.
The best? I mean, my God.
I don't know about that, but
that's. I mean,
there's some great podcasts out there, like
yes,
Joe Rogan.
There is, and I think everything I do is stupid. You make it better, but I'm gonna take that that compliment from him, which is more than appreciated. Estranged fan from my GNR forum, and he left a review for us on iTunes, which we really appreciate. Yes, we are on iTunes. Help us, boost our numbers, as they say in the biz, right? Do they say that in the biz?
I think so.
Okay, they're saying it now. So thank you for leaving us positive reviews. A lot more from my GNR forum, and we're also heavily on Facebook and Twitter, both at the AFD show. But a couple I want to mention or I should say 3, because a couple was 2 from. Why did I have to over-explain that? From our Twitter, and that would be Mimi Rocks 84. She's always liking our stuff and retweeting it. The real Shane 31, he said he's listened to a lot of podcasts, and this is the best one he's ever heard. I mean, I don't know how that's happened, but thank you. I mean, that really means a lot to us, so thank you. That's why we want to call you out by at least your handle. And Appetite for GNR. What a great handle and site that is on Twitter. Always retweeting photos I've never seen and videos I've never seen, and they're really helping us with our exposure and retweeting our stuff and liking our stuff, so thank you. So we want to get that out of the way before we get into the amount of stuff that has happened. How dormant was Guns N' Roses for how many years? And just between our podcasts, so much has already happened.
Well, I love the whole mystery of it. So anyway, what I was getting at, though, and I really just want to mention this quickly, was that so the night that Adler played with Guns N' Roses, it was trending on Facebook and Twitter and all that.
And it was the Cincinnati show.
Yeah, which
nobody
was awesome
knew
to see. And then one night later, unfortunately, what was trending is just all this terrible stuff that happened in Texas. And, this has been just a horrible news week. And the only thing I wanted to say is, like, I love doing this podcast because working in political talk radio and all that, it's nice to get away from, like, the terribleness that has become of this country, really. And all I really wanted to say, honestly, is that don't be one of those people who's afraid to leave your house because of all this stuff going on and just watching 24/7 news.
You can't live your life like that.
Yeah, so to connect it back to this podcast, like, go out to these Guns N' Roses shows and have a great time. And, don't let terrorists and people who are, killing police, or in, the case of the days before, police officers who are, abusing their power, stop you from enjoying your life. And it's just, that's why I love doing this show. It's great to get away from the bullshit, really.
I'm really glad that we kind of essentially started with that as far as content. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because you really are immersed in the political talk on Sirius. And I'm fortunate enough to, yes, I follow it. I'm aware, but I'm able to really compartmentalize because I work in rock radio, and I can get away from that stuff if I want to. And I think that's important, to get away, that we still, despite all the shit that's going on, we have this love of this band, love of rock and roll, and we can still appreciate it. And that's how we want to live our lives. And we hope that whatever you find in your life, whether it's Guns N' Roses, whether it's Hall & Oates, whether it's just being with your family, which is probably more important, just enjoy it and don't be afraid. You know? So thank you for taking time out of your more important lives to spend it with us. So thank you.
And that's why I said I just wanted to mention it quickly, because it's,
I'm glad you did.
We can't. It's been such a heavy news week that I usually don't like to mention what's going on in the news, because this is not the forum for it. But it was too much to not mention. So anyway, back to what we were saying, though. The night before the shit hit the fan in Texas, basically, Adler was trending all over different social media, and it is just an amazing thing and an amazing inspirational story. Even seeing what his mom wrote about him getting on stage.
Yeah, do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, I screenshotted it. So on her personal Facebook, if I pull it up here, she wrote, and this is Dina Adler. I don't know if it's Deanna Adler. Good morning, my friends. Last night, my son, Steven Adler, played with Guns N' Roses. His dream of performing with them once again came true. I cannot tell you just how proud of him I am. To see him on stage with that smile brought tears to my eyes. God bless him. By the way, is he looking good or what? Proud.
I mean, that, I don't think we understand. I think we do to a degree, but how important that is to that woman. I read his autobiography, and, I don't know if you saw also his appearance on, what was it, the VH1 Rehab, Celebrity Rehab, and that was just brutal to watch. I mean, this guy was somebody who's kicked out of Guns N' Roses, who was notorious for not even just doing, but writing songs about doing heroin and drugs, and and he was kicked out of it for doing too much of it.
Yeah.
I mean, how bad do you have to be? I mean, he slurs now because he had a coke-induced stroke, and he was doing heroin crack on TV. And we're years later, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's been good for a while. I mean, he's been sober for, a chunk of time, and he's gone back and back. That's unfortunately sometimes a method for addicts. But he seems healthy. His band Adler has put out good music. He has, I think you've sent me videos of him on the drums, just killing it.
Yeah.
Just killing it. And I think what's happened, because he came out for 2 songs. I don't think there was any rumblings of this other than just, him and or Izzy at some point. I mean, Cincinnati of all the places. I mean, I love Cincinnati, WKRP or whatever.
Yeah, but why?
Why Cincinnati? I have no idea.
That's the thing.
Maybe that's why there were rumors that, did he have back surgery? And
yes, I saw that.
So maybe it was just time and he's easing his way in. I don't know.
But you know what? He did play at that M3 Rock Fest in, I think it's Maryland.
Okay.
And
when was that?
That was a few weeks back. So I think it was actually before he even started this podcast. So he's good enough to drum. I just, this is part of what I love about Guns N' Roses, just the mystery of this band. Like, I'm a huge Motley Crue fan.
Me too.
But if you went out and saw that final tour, it was basically the same thing every night, including the final show. There were no surprises. There were no guests up on that stage. Like, they didn't bring out John Corabi.
Did you see the rant that he went on Facebook?
Yeah. So,
yeah.
But, with Guns N' Roses, it's like the fact that they don't do media, and you're still left wondering, like, all right, are they going to change the set list up? Are they going to bring out Steven Adler? Is Izzy going to come out at some point? Like, I love that mystery component of this band.
I couldn't agree more. And it's frustrating, but I think we enjoy the frustration a little bit. We're a bit of a masochist with this band.
Yeah.
Just because I think that it's the mystery element of rock and roll is missing, and it's so hard to do that in today's media. Because when Guns was huge, there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook, there was no social media, there was none of that stuff. And now it's so hard to keep a secret. And the fact that they do that. Even though, even with Axl being with AC/DC and TMZ all over it, we didn't know until, they said for sure. There were rumors about, we're like, oh, we think it's going to happen. No, you're going to know when we tell you, it's official, it's going to happen. So I do enjoy that. But just the way Steven came out and just how I love how Axl introduces everybody. I think you know this guy.
Yeah.
Mr. Steven Adler.
He doesn't even do, a huge, I feel like, if this was Sebastian Bach, who's on the other side of the spectrum of being like, holy shit.
Oh my God.
Yeah. It was just almost this was expected. And the audience goes nuts because...
But they seemed like they were in shock. They were when they panned to the audience in that clip, that I think no one expected it at all. Because he was well into the show, and he played a couple tracks.
Out to Get Me.
And My Michelle.
Yeah.
And he killed it. And just seeing those moments.
And his smile, man. He's so happy.
And Slash's and Axl's smile, too.
Yeah.
Everybody was smiling.
Yeah, because with the other guys, we talked about, are they getting along? Are they not getting along? Even though it seems like they definitely are. But with Steven Adler on stage, there is no doubt in your mind that he enjoys being up there. You couldn't possibly think otherwise.
This is somebody who's more than anybody clamoring for a reunion. I mean, Duff, maybe one day. Slash, maybe one day. Axl, when hell freezes over. Now, not in his lifetime.
Not in his lifetime.
Not in his lifetime. But Adler, we got to do it. We got to do it. I mean, and he was somebody who kicked out many, many years ago. And what I've noticed, I don't know if you with your friends, and I don't know if it's par for the course or it's just unfortunate. Some people making the comments, oh, he's still alive. I mean, those are just trolls being assholes. But some of those, he can still play. And they remember those clips from him from VH1 Classic, which was years ago at this point. He's okay. I had somebody here at WBAB, where we're recording the station I work for on Long Island, who's huge into rock, and say, I thought he had a stroke. I'm like, yeah, but that was years ago, and it only affected his speech. He's like, oh, and this is somebody who is into rock, and I guess that passed him over. So this is somebody who's out of the limelight, and somebody, this is just, it feels good. Somebody who's faced addiction like this and depression and has gotten through it all to have this moment that he's wanted. Hopefully tonight, when we're recording this, he comes back again. We don't know. Yeah. So one of my friends was teasing me. He's like, well, what's Adler's position going forward? I don't know. Oh, thanks. Behind the scenes of a podcast. I'm like, nobody knows.
That's the beauty of it. So before we get to the great Anthony Bozza, because we actually have to call him in a minute, as you mentioned, Izzy put out a track with Matt Storm. I don't know if the whole track is out, but we heard a clip of it.
It's TP Money.
And it just from the clip, it definitely mentions money and almost sounds like it might be talking about this reunion and a money grab, staying away from the money, and it's a little strange, man. I want to see Izzy back on this stage, and this is not hopeful.
I mean, sometimes we read too much into things, and that's just been the way it is.
Why is it with Matt Storm, though? He hasn't done anything with him. At least as far as I haven't followed Izzy's solo career that much, to be honest.
Same here. I mean, I know he's the Juju Hounds, right?
Yeah, but I mean, I like that song he put out, Vietnam. That was or Baby Ran Away to Vietnam, whatever it was called. Good, very good song. I had that on my iPod for quite some time, rocked out to it. But it is a little suspect that he's putting out a track with Matt Storm now. Both guys not involved with the reunion.
It's weird, especially since Izzy was with Axl in the previous version of Guns N' Roses, so you would like to think they're cool. Or maybe the fact that he has this reunion, that maybe Izzy wasn't cool with the rest of the band, and Axl had to make a choice. I'm taking that as pure nowhere.
Yeah, but as we said, the correction that we made, he got on stage with Velvet Revolver.
Yeah, so then what is it? We don't know. Maybe we'll get an insight from Anthony Bozza, because I mentioned reading Steven Adler's book, and I've joked, I'm like, hey, do you want to read Steven Adler's book? I'll let you know when I'm done coloring it. Because it was just, it was Steven Adler. It was all over the place. And the two books I read by him, by Anthony, and we'll talk about that, are Tommy Lee's book, Tommyland, and Slash's. And I really, this is years and years ago. I never thought I would be speaking to, the co-author, I guess.
Before we bring on Anthony Bozza, who's on the line with us now, the way that I met Anthony was, as some of you guys may know, I produced some shows outside of here for like my real job, and one of those being Senator Bill Bradley's American Voices on Sirius. And we do a segment with different authors called Favorite Places, about different authors' favorite place in America. And just being a fan of Anthony's work, reading Tommy Lee's book and Tracy Morgan's book and both of Artie Lange's books, I suggested we bring on Anthony. And we kind of clicked right away. We were talking rock and roll and talking about Motley Crue and just different stuff going on. And then I found out that Anthony's father delivered me as a baby, and there's our connection.
Yep.
You know what? I have to break your balls on one thing, though, before we get into everything. So I found out that when, that your father delivered me from my mom, and she's like, yeah, Dr. Bozza, but you go by Anthony Bozza. So this reminds me of like the Carmine Appice and Vinny Appice thing, how they're related, but they pronounce their last name differently. So I just have to ask, what's up with that?
Yeah, exactly. Well, my father's family, I guess they said that back in the day. It was more sort of American pronunciation, I suppose. But really, in Italian, it's Bozza. So to me, it should be Bozza. So I don't know. When I had a choice in the matter, I decided that's the way I think it should be done.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I had to bring that up. So, I mean, it's kind of the funniest connection ever that I have this picture of me as, being delivered with your father in the background. And I showed it to you, and you're like, yep, that's my dad. But,
yeah,
so
there he is.
The first thing I want to get into with you is you got to co-write Slash's book with him, and obviously share some awesome experiences with him. And we want to get into what goes into co-writing a book. But my first question is, when you were writing this book, did you ever think that this was going to be a reality, that this band was going to get back together and reunite? Did you think there was any way in hell it was going to happen?
Wait, they got back together? Yeah, I never, the Not in This Lifetime is an apt title for the tour. I really didn't, and not because of Slash, really. I guess mostly because Axl was doing his thing. I really didn't. I didn't think there was any way in hell that was going to happen. Slash wasn't sitting there saying, I hate Axl and I would never work with him again. That's not why. There's just too many moving parts. And Slash was really, really psyched to kind of do his own thing, which he has been doing with Miles Kennedy and all that kind of stuff. He was really amped to sort of get out there and do his own thing. And Axl was doing like his, Axl and Friends version of Guns. Mm-hmm. So I just never, ever, ever thought I would see this day.
I want to know how you got into this, because I'm like a poor man's version. I'm nowhere near your version of what an author is. My first because I like Ian, I'm also in radio, and my first gig was up in Cape Cod, and just a long story short, I worked with this guy to write a book about his family in Cape Cod, and because he had a museum and needed somebody to help putting a book together. So I have like a self-published book out there about Cape Cod. It has sold like 400 copies. So how do I get from Cape Cod to writing with Slash, Tommy Lee, Derek Jeter? Like, what was your path? Because that's a really hard path to be an author.
Yeah, it was definitely, I didn't get a college degree and say that's what I'm going to do. I sort of found my way there. But I was on staff in Rolling Stone for 8 years. That happened because I had an internship, and basically just sort of looked around and as a lot of cocky people will do, I was like, I can do this. And I really just stuck it out until I got the chance to. I started out as like a researcher in the library and researched stuff for other writers and for the books division. They used to have their own like publishing and print. And that's kind of how it started. And then I really, I got my big break was doing the first cover story on Eminem, and about him early and just really stuck with it. And I'm lucky that my editor let me, have a crack at doing that cover story. And that's kind of really how it began. And then I wrote a book about him, like with his permission, and that was a New York Times bestseller. And then, and then the Tommy Lee thing kind of happened because someone I knew was actually working for a literary agent, and I wanted to switch agents. And I met the guy who became my agent for a while, and he said, well, I have this project, but I can only really tell you about it if you want to become my client. And that was Tommy looking for another co-writer. He had worked with someone else and it wasn't working out, and he needed someone like kind of quickly. So I guess it's it's being in the right place at the right time, and being, I guess, good enough to pull it off. But yeah,
not
a great road at all.
Well, what I enjoyed a lot was, I read, Slash's book in his words, in his voice. Like I imagined him writing it. Same thing with Tommy's. And they're two totally different types of personalities. So how did you do that what was the process like? Were they just telling you, hey, this is what happened. Here's when I banged this chick. This is when I did this drug. And you just kind of made it coherent? Or what was the process like?
Well, each person, each co-write is definitely different. It's like, interviewing, I always tell people it's like first date every time. So you have to sort of like figure out who the person is. You have to earn their trust at some point along the process, and that is literally different from, I've been asked this by up-and-coming interviewers and writers, and there's no answer. There's no like one way you can always earn someone's trust. It's different for every single person. But
it makes sense.
If you don't get that, then you're not going to really have a good book. So Tommy and Slash are very different personalities, but that's kind of what happened. You just got to kind of, I don't know, you got to get in there. You got to make them like you. And
do you go out to dinner? I mean, do you go in a hot tub together? Like do you have an Anthony Bozza approach to, romancing your co-author?
I mean, I like long walks on the beach and windsurfing, but that's not for everybody. Honestly, it depends. Like Tommy basically wanted me to kind of live his life. And
oh, geez, you survived it.
Myself, yeah. I mean, I lived in his house for 9 months, and I'm still here.
Wow,
that's saying a lot. That guy is like made of something other than than us normal mortals. First of all, but that was what he needed. He needed me to sort of be around, like become. He obviously he likes me. We're like totally buddies to this day. I talk to him all the time.
Nice.
But for him, it was like live my life, and then I'll tell you what's up. I mean, literally in the beginning, it was like he wasn't in Motley Crue at the time. He was kind of pissed about it. He was like pissed at them, and he's come back around. So, like for example, every time I had a question about Motley, no matter what time of day it was, he would just make me shoot Jack Daniels.
I love it.
All right. One of the reasons why I ended up living with him, because he lived at the top of a canyon, like up on top of Malibu, and there's like no way in hell I was driving the car ever. Like after day 5, I'm like I can't drive back to the apartment that I have rented for this job. So that was one thing. With Slash, it was different. I think the only reason, he told me this much later, but he'd had a lot of people come after him to do this book, and he had met with a lot of writers, I think about 7 or 8, and he had told his manager he was never going to do it, and the guy was like, well, just meet this guy. And he told me later that the reason why he decided to do it with me is because in our first long meeting, which was like 7 hours of him sort of talking late at night on, overlooking the Sunset Strip. It was incredible. It was because that I didn't ask anything about Axl Rose or Guns N' Roses for 7 hours.
Wow.
Yeah. He started talking about his childhood, which is fascinating, and is a big part of the book, because I just was like, oh my God, this guy, when he was a kid, was like already a rock star. His childhood is crazy. It's incredible. And that did it for that. That's how I earned his trust. He was like, okay, this guy is just going to be all about guns. So you know what I mean? You're gonna, and I didn't really know that going in. I didn't know what his preferences were there or whatever. I just went where the story took me, like where I found it interesting.
Well, that shows that you care about the person. It's not just the allure, what everybody knows of that person. Because you could see, which is what's surprising, I'm sure, to you, and was to us, because there was a time where Slash was like, don't ask me any more Guns N' Roses questions. You could see he was getting annoyed. I've been successful with, Velvet Revolver, and Slash's Snake Pit had some success. And, and that's what I like, too, and that's why I wanted to know about your history, what made you a writer, and Ian told me you're also a Long Island guy, so nice.
I am.
Yeah, we're all Long Island here, oh, God.
Proud Long Islander.
Yeah, well, where'd you grow up, by the way?
Port Washington and Manhasset.
Okay.
Yeah, which is right by me.
And to finish my thought, it shows that you care, and I always like the character building, so for me, I wanted to know all the dirt between Slash and Axl, but knowing that, about his BMX history and growing up and, what his parents are like,
the BMX thing is fascinating. That's what hooked me. I was like, really? So anyway, go ahead.
Can you imagine him as a kid in like leather pants BMXing? That's just like so weird.
That's what I was. Yeah, it was just like this guy was. Oh, he was like a little 12-year-old total rock star. Like, he was probably the coolest.
You either have it or you don't.
Still is.
And that's what I think I also liked. And those are the two books that and I know you have a lot more, and we want to get into those later. The other one that I did read of yours was Tommy's, and just knowing like what kind of kid he was, and how he was shy and the Greek life that he grew up with, because it's like, how did you get to that point in your life? How did you become Tommy Lee? That just doesn't just happen. I mean, well, let me change that. Sometimes in today's world, you can create a Justin Bieber. You can create a Britney Spears. But these are people that were, what they were as children kind of paved the way for them to be the legends that they are today. So that's really cool. So that's why I wanted to know, like, where you came from. How are you writing with Derek Jeter? I'm a huge Yankee fan. I hate you for that. Jeez.
I mean, I'm a huge Yankee fan, too. Jeter was cool. He was, that was like it was a different kind of thing. I just interviewed him for a photo book, so it wasn't like the whole life story, unfortunately. So it wasn't a lot of time. And Derek Jeter is incredibly tactful and gracious, and is a great host, and also incredibly well trained in like not really revealing anything.
Very frustrating for many a reporter over the years.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so, we did the work, and it was like super pleasant and really fun. And it's Derek Jeter, and it was his final season, and I got to go in the clubhouse for like every home game. So like, please, I can die happy.
So you were at the last game where he had the walk-off hit?
Absolutely.
And I was in the stands for when he jumped into the into the stands and bloodied up his face. So but that's not as cool as you. So you trumped my story.
Cool.
Thanks, I guess.
He was great though. He was great. And the thing the most, I think we definitely used this quote in the book. I think it made the cut, but I don't know. The most revealing thing I feel like I learned about him was when he just said, like, he's like, after this, he's like, I'm not going to be hanging around. Like, you're not going to see me doing Yankee stuff. And he's like, no disrespect, but like, I did it and I'm good. And he's like, I'm going to go like have a life now. He's like, I realized, he said, I've never like gone on vacation in the summer since I was like, like 16, and he's 40 or so.
But that's cool. I mean, I didn't know
really
that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, we all assume that.
Travel and yeah, I know exactly. Like baseball's got the longest season of any professional sport we have in this country. So, he was like, I want to travel. I want to go to all these places, and I've like never really had the chance to do that because, they get a couple months off and then it's back into training. And he's so dedicated that I think his time off is even less because he cared and would, get right back to it. So he was just like, I want to just kind of be a normal guy or just do things that people can't do.
Like bang Mika Kelly or whatever who's married to.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, just a normal guy.
Yeah.
Just that long list of hot babes.
Yeah.
So getting back into Slash here, you just talked about meeting him for the first time and everything. So you're a guy who grew up on Guns N' Roses and their music. I know you're a rock fan at large. We've had some great discussions about, like I said, the Crew and Guns. Do you get starstruck meeting this guy that you've watched on MTV growing up as a kid and seeing all these great music videos and listening to their albums? Are you kind of in shock?
Well, I definitely, there are people that definitely do that. to me. To be able to like do my job at Rolling Stone, I've had to sort of figure out a way not to let that happen so I can stay focused and like not, just talk over them during the interview and derail myself.
Like me.
So, so that said, he's still, Slash is like one of those unique people. He's like a unicorn, he really is like that cool.
So that's what's under that top hat. Okay.
Yeah, right. A unicorn horn. So, I mean, I always say that I'm pretty much like a fan first. And there are definitely always moments when I'm doing what I do where, like, secretly inside I'm high-fiving myself, like trying not to let anyone know, especially the person I'm talking to, just how cool I think this moment is. And I think hopefully they don't. But there was a lot of that stuff with him. Like, for example, when we were working together, the Guitar Hero edition came out with Slash's in it.
Sure.
And so I was playing Guitar Hero against Slash with both of us playing him.
Oh, man.
That's what a surreal moment.
So it was like, really funny. It was actually super funny. He would play it and be like, we were actually, I think, playing a Motley song, so even more of like a circle of life or whatever. And he would just be like, I can play this on the real guitar. It was amazing. But then dude went on vacation with his kids snowboarding for like a week and a half and came back and completely was better than I was. And I was like, really? God, because, practice makes perfect. It was like, he just was like, he just got really good at it. So kind of funny.
What a trip.
But like that's kind of moment where I was like, this is amazing. Like I'm high-fiving younger self and present self secretly in my mind at the same time.
That's just awesome, man. So did you get to see him perform as well while you were writing this book?
He was in Velvet Revolver at the time, and when it came time to do like final edits, they were on tour, and so I did sort of spend like I think a week with them in Canada, seeing shows and getting the final stuff for the book done. So yes, and Duff was there too, and Duff read like bunches like pieces of the book, and I remember him saying to Slash, he's like, yeah, man, I think you remember about 70% of and our book is like 400 pages long. So
yeah, it's sitting in front of me. I brought him in for show and tell. I have the Slash and Tommy Lee book right in front of me right now, and it's a big book. I was like, wow, Slash wrote a lot.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if it's quite Bible sized, but it's pretty close. So that was really funny. He's like, do you remember this and this? And then they would kind of reminisce. And those stories were like really kind of insane and, they're blackout stories. But I think we did it. I mean, there's enough in there, but I thought that was really funny.
You know what I'm wondering about writing the book? So I'm a good friend of Jack Murphy's who works with me over at sofrep.com. And he's an amazing writer, and he's been helping to co-write Jim West's book, who's a veteran martial arts expert, and they're shopping it around right now. And Jack loved writing this book with Jim, but he told me, he's like, I don't know if I could ever do this again. It's so hard to write from someone else's voice. It's just such a difficult process, and it really took a lot to get used to. So I'm wondering for you, how hard is it to, help write passages in Slash's voice from his perspective?
Co-writing is not for everyone. I can very much say that. It's a unique set of skills. Like, I've had a lot of...
A particular set of skills. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, that too. It's a co-writing skill. I've had a lot of friends, like fellow journalists, who have sort of wanted to make that transition. And they're always like, well, you just sort of... You tape record them, and then you kind of transcribe it, and you just edit it, right? And I'm like, yeah, keep telling yourself that. It's a lot more than that, as your friend found out, you can't just really tape record someone and put it into paragraph form. You won't really capture them. You'll capture a bit, but you have to kind of get inside their head. You have to figure out how they want to sound, how they would write their own book if they could write it themselves. Not to say they can't, but they might not have time or whatever the case may be. It's a little bit like psychotherapy too, which, I don't know. I find analysis of human beings interesting.
Same here. Because you don't want it to sound like you, like writing their book. You want it to be like it's still them. You're just their vessel, right?
Yeah, pretty much. If I'm doing that and you feel like you're reading and it sounds like that person, then I've won the day and I did my job.
And you did. That's what I said. It sounded like Tommy. It sounded like Slash. And I just thought, maybe I didn't know how in depth you were at the time. I mean, this was years ago I read these. I'm like, oh, maybe he just made sure that they, spoke English or something. I wasn't sure what the involvement of Anthony Bozza at the time was, but it's a challenge.
The people I co-write with generally just show up and talk to me, and I do the rest.
You do all the work. They've lived the life. You do the work.
100%. I totally do. Certain like Artie Lange, for example, works in the spoken medium and has been on radio and is in stand-up comics. So we have a really great working relationship. And maybe, with Artie is probably a little bit more, I probably am able to give him more direction. So, he'll tell a bunch of stories and it's a shorter process probably from the interview to the final. With other people, like Slash is a musician and he expresses himself through guitar and is kind of a pretty shy guy generally. So that took a lot more. Every person's different. If a person really wants it and is really into it, my job is easier. Some people just kind of think it's like a magazine interview, and it's really not. It's like a little more in depth. So yeah, I don't know if that answered your question or what your question was at this.
Yeah, no, I get it absolutely. And the thing that I'm wondering also about opening up is, I would think as these guys are writing the book, there's certain things that they do not want to talk about, but that the fans really want to hear about. Like, do you ever get any flack for something they opened up to you about and you end up putting in the book and they're like, man, I don't really want this out there for people to read, but those are the type of things that are going to make this book a New York Times bestseller?
Yeah, generally, like, I would say there's always some stuff like that I feel like people, definitely are going to want to hear or need to hear. I would never, encourage them to do anything that could be like damaging to them, really, but or irrelevant. I mean, generally, my argument is it's good for the story, or it moves the narrative along. If it does that, and it's shocking, then it should stay. I mean, these are all discussions that we have in general, and usually, like, obviously they read everything and we go over it and we make those decisions together.
Then, like with the case with Slash and why he chose you, you didn't ask about Axl for 7 hours, which good for you, man. That's like, I don't know, so that's like some Zen Buddhist shit right there. Not to ask, like, you have Slash in front of you, not ask about Axl Rose. I mean, I
swear to God, it was because his childhood is so fascinating. I was asking about like David Bowie and and his parents.
Oh, for sure, but for 7 hours, not even a quick little like you and Axl, huh? Not even like a slip it in. But I was wondering, how did you approach that? Because I was expecting to read something in Slash's book, scathing. This is the first time, like you said, Slash is a shy guy. He's really not, somebody to talk a lot in interviews. But the only thing I remember, and obviously you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is the only thing that was kind of awkward about Axl in the book was, he jumped out of a car once because he was uncomfortable. And, then that's just like a weird, quirk, I guess, if you're jumping out of a car. But there was nothing really as venomous as Axl has said about Slash in the past.
I know, and that was real. There was none of that. Everything he said about Axl we used. And that really is how he felt. That story, by the way, is the thing that speaks volumes to me. That's like, I feel like that's everything I need to know about the mind of Axl Rose, or maybe all that I'll ever know.
Right. Well, maybe you'll write his book one day. We'll see.
I don't know. I feel like they're probably, listen, I mean, I think you have to choose. You have to choose people in a band. I don't know if anyone would like pass around the same writer.
Yeah.
Sure. Good point.
But I would do it, obviously, the second. But yeah.
I like that analogy. Pass around the same lighter. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, it sounds a little groupy too.
but I don't know. I like it. But so did anything? Because that surprised me. Did you go in, since you are a fan? You were a fan. That you expected that? I mean, we know that we learned about Slash's childhood, But anything more than that just blew you away, that, oh my God, I looked up this guy and now I wrote his book on, like, there's so much more I learned. What did you gain or perhaps lose from working with him?
Let's see. I mean, like I said, well, the childhood, that was the most fascinating childhood I've ever heard of.
Well, for those, I guess, who haven't read, I mean, I want them still to pick it up, even though it's been out for a while. Like a quick synopsis of, like, Slash's, what you learned. Because you mentioned his mom dated David Bowie, or was that the deal?
Well, his mother was a costume designer. She did, like, all of the costumes on Man Who Fell to Earth, and then she and Bowie had an affair. Well, he's still married to Slash's dad, and it was it was like the '70s, so it was like the kind of thing where David would come over with, I guess he was married to Angela at the time, and his son Zoe, and they would, he and Ola, Slash's mom, would do, like, transcendental meditation together. I mean, they were totally, like, sleeping with each other, and, like, they kind of knew it, and it, just very 70s. That whole thing, his dad was a painter, who painted a lot of, like, famous album covers. Like, back in the day, the industry would, commissioned him to paint, like, he painted the cover of Joni Mitchell, Ladies of the Canyon, and these were big 6-foot canvases that were then photographed for the album cover. And that, that was the kind of artsy way that they were doing it, back in the day. So, like, all that kind of moment in time, they lived in Laurel Canyon, like, when, I think the Eagles still lived there, and, like, Morrison used to, when he was alive, lived up the street. That kind of stuff. I was just like, this kid literally was born to be a rock star.
Yeah.
And then he became an almost, was like semi-pro BMX rider, and then discovered guitar and didn't care about bikes anymore. Like, it was like a pot dealer when he was 12. He was like, who are you, man? Like, he was literally born to be Slash.
Yeah, and that also makes sense, because when you hear about kind of these guys who are so talented on something, when they pick it up, they become obsessed with it. So, it's this obsession to become a great on a bike or amazing on a guitar the way that he has. And I'm just wondering, you told that Guitar Hero story. That's a great one. Are there any other just crazy stories from that, I assume, about a year or so working with Slash and helping him to write this book? Like, anything that people don't know about that you got to do with him?
Well, he was, he had gone to rehab, and we talk about this in the book, so I'm not really spilling any beans. But basically, I always tell people that, the way you should this book feels as intimate as it does, because we also did all the interviews from, like, generally midnight to, like, 4 a.m.
Wow.
Which is when he was still using drugs. He would put his kids to sleep, and his wife would go upstairs, and for about those hours, he would, like, he was, like, doing opiates, and would sit in his studio and just play guitar or video games, actually. And so he sort of substituted that time. He was still, like, on that sleep schedule, but he wasn't doing drugs anymore, so he substituted that with me and telling stories. So, I feel like that book feels very intimate, and like you're literally sitting in a room. Well, I literally was sitting in a smoke-filled room with Slash, like, chain-smoking French cigarettes and telling me stories about Guns N' Roses. So I feel like that comes across because literally that's how it happens. So there you go.
And do you want to become more like a friend than a co-author at any point, and help him in the direction of his life while he's going through?
Like,
these
when the book's
troubling
over,
times?
it's like, how do you do? Like, so do you want to grab a bagel? Like, do you want to still, like, do you want to hang out?
Like, if that's going to happen, it's going to happen. I mean, I'm about to go get on a plane.
I know.
To go see and go hang out with him, like, after the show in Nashville tonight. So I'm really pumped. So that kind of, that happens. I'm certainly friends with some of the people I've worked with. Like, I get texts from Mick Fleetwood. That like blows my mind all the time.
That's so cool.
And Tommy and I are, like, ridiculous. He's like my big brother. It's like he just never stopped being that guy. Slash is a private dude, and we worked really well together, and I'm definitely, like, in touch with him and see him when we're in the same place. And that's it. About a year later, he told somebody else a compliment about working with me that got to me. And that's the kind of guy he is too. Like he's incredibly civil and always very nice. But keeps things to himself and he's really like the epitome of cool. Like he really is just cool level, Slash. But that meant a lot. I sort of did get like, he kind of said like how great it was and how much he loved the book and what it was like, but he didn't tell me. He told somebody that he knew would tell me. You know what I mean? That's the kind of guy he is. So
that's cool.
Anyway, I lived for that moment, which is great.
That's awesome. And when you were saying about hanging out with Tommy Lee, actually, what popped up on my news feed a few weeks back was Anthony being interviewed with Tommy, and I think it was DJ Arrow and a bunch of other guys by. I'm friends with her on Facebook, that Long Island Jewish princesses chick,
okay.
Amanda Bertoncini, because she's ridiculously hot. But that was fun to watch, man.
Dude, that was a funny night. Yeah, Tommy gets some very interesting DJ bookings. That was like a tattoo convention. Oh, I wonder why. At a casino. It's like, dude, I'm in town. Come over. So. That was hilarious. Do
you drop all plans at that point when Tommy Lee texts you and is like, "Yo, I'm in town. Come hang."
Yeah, pretty much. That and to be honest, that time he stayed an extra day, just to like hang out with me basically. And he wanted to see like the part of Brooklyn I live in, and wanted to I have a lot of food friends in the food world and stuff, and he wanted to go to crazy new cocktail spot and try all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty fun. I also took him to a hardcore show because we were walking by and there was one of those afternoon $8 for hardcore bands during the day, and he heard it and he was like, dude, let's go in there and see what's going on. And so it's like Tommy Lee sneaking into a Brooklyn punk show. Nobody knew who he was.
Holy shit.
Yeah,
wait, what
really
is
funny. They realized by the time we left, but then it was too late.
Yeah, I was going to say, what is the reaction to Tommy Lee walking into a local Brooklyn hardcore show? That's insane.
They didn't even know. Everyone was too into it, and and it's really funny. And he was sort of dressed down, just hat on. We just kind of snuck in and just listened for a while. Actually, the bouncer was like, "Yeah, you guys can't come in. It's almost at capacity." And then I was like, I just paid the guy. And then when we were leaving, he's like, "Wait, is that Tommy Lee?" I'm like, "Never mind." It was pretty fun.
So as for tonight's show, as we even mentioned earlier before we brought you on, you're on your way to Nashville, flying in to see GNR, and this is the first time you're seeing, I guess what people would call the real GNR, right?
Right. And Steven Adler hopped on stage at the last show.
Which we were talking about. So are you hopeful that it's going to happen tonight?
Because this is a big moment, because nobody knows, was that a one-off? What's going on? So tonight it's going to hopefully answer some questions. Probably not, knowing this band. But
yeah. I mean, I'm going to go with he's probably going to be there, just because I like to put the positive vibes out there.
Good.
I mean, because, why would he just do one show? I think, and also Cincinnati, no disrespect.
That's what we were saying that too. Why?
And this one's Nashville is the music capital of the South. So I am hopeful that we're going to see another Adler appearance. I can only hope that Izzy will be there, because that is the unicorn. That guy is the bomb.
Yeah.
And it would be incredible. And he lives in California and has a place in Indiana. So Indiana's not too far from Nashville, Tennessee.
He's got to come out, man.
I mean, I will melt. It's we get all the guys.
It's so close.
Awesome.
I mean, writing, during writing, you said earlier, you never thought, none of us ever thought that this was. So what is your reaction to now? How do you feel like this is happening? What are your hopes for the future? I mean, do you look at this as, because Ian and I were talking about earlier with the song that Izzy just put out with Matt Sorum, they're looking into the lyrics. Is it about the new reunion? Is it about money? Do you look at this as a money grab? Do you look at this as, you know what, everyone's matured, this is just the time for everybody to get back together again? What is your view on the whole reunion and the band going forward?
I don't know. I mean, listen, everyone likes to make money, and the offers that those guys are getting for years is really insane. I'm sure it's partially that. It's partially just putting something to bed. They couldn't, I'm glad they did. I'm glad they came around and did it, because everyone's been waiting for it, and they should have put the icing on that cake, while everyone's still here. So I don't know. I mean, will they make new music? That would be killer. I'd love to hear it, but again, I'm kind of an Izzy guy. Like, I want to hear Izzy and Slash playing guitar together again.
Oh, yeah.
So if that happens, damn it, that would be amazing.
It really would.
No disrespect to the hired hands, but, like, just go listen to anything off Appetite. Like, the way they play back, it's insane. Like, they're the best. So I'm going to hold out for that. That would make me really happy. I'd love to hear what they would come up with.
You know, I'm also curious.
Then again, it might get into the, like, is it going to be more like, keyboard heavy Axl / Elton John style, or is it going to be the real deal, like Appetite?
Well, then what?
All guitars and balls.
But isn't it crazy that Slash and Duff are playing stuff off Chinese Democracy? I mean, how did that conversation happen? Let alone the conversation to get back together again, but just they're playing this music, and they really didn't, shit on the record when it came out. They try to be diplomatic about it, but the fact that they're playing these songs is just, that's even makes this more surreal. It's just, where are we?
I mean, I think that's just like being polite.
Okay, fair enough.
Everyone's getting to do their thing, so that maybe that is a sign that, like, they could do some new music because everyone's sort of down for the team, so to speak. I guess we'll have to see. I'll probably just be getting a beer during those songs.
You weren't a fan?
Not really, no. Because
I know Scotto and I like it.
the original lineup. I'm a purist about this band. I really didn't actually like it. Axl is one of the most incredible rock and roll voices, like, in history, so it's nice to always hear him. But it was like, really, this took you. A lot of it, to me, by the time he got it out, it really sounded dated.
Yeah.
It was like, if he had gotten it out when he started it, like, 12 years before, some of the rock and some quasi-industrially tinged stuff would have felt more, I don't know, relevant.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to feel that way. But so, what's so crazy about this band, and I was hinting at it a little bit before with Brandon before we brought you on, and you could relate to this working with Tommy Lee, is that there's such a big difference between, like, these reunion shows and those last Motley Crue shows, or when Tommy Lee reunited with Motley Crue, because I've seen them a bunch of times. I fucking love Motley Crue. I have the Dr. Feelgood tattoo on my back, as I think you know. But nonetheless, when you go see Motley Crue, it is very predictable. It's the same set list every night. They don't bring out any special guests. As I was saying to Brando, they don't bring out John Corabi in that last show or anything like that. Like, the last show set list was pretty much the same set list that I saw months before, and I know, you went to a bunch of those shows and that you saw. With this band, it's like, it's such a mystery. Is Adler going to come back? Is Steven going to come back? And
is it going to implode?
Yeah, and, like, I personally love that mystery element of this band, and I think that's what keeps it fresh and exciting for me.
Yeah, I agree. It's way more. It's more like a living thing, if that makes any sense. It still kind of could evolve and change, and there are all those things. With Motley, it's like, you know what you're going to get. Vince isn't going to do anything new. And like that,
new surgery.
That's kind of the deal.
A new fight with Nicolas Cage, maybe?
What's that?
A new fight with Nicolas Cage? That was the weirdest fucking... You can't even make that shit up. Oh, my God. Or did you see that TMZ thing where he's asking for his Bentley and getting into a fight with a garage attendant? Yeah.
That's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good one.
He is...
I want my car! Like, stomach is coming out of his shirt. Go for it, bud.
Well, I also want to ask you, because you wrote the...
Okay, I got to go after this, though, because I'm going to miss...
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We're not going to prevent you from missing Guns N' Roses. Because I know you wrote an AC/DC biography, right?
Yes, I did.
So it was just...
really like a love letter to AC/DC, and also a letter to all the critics who never really gave them any play.
Then I want to get your feeling, because it was just announced that Cliff Williams is going to retire after this tour. What do you feel about Axl, DC in general, and potentially Axl continuing with now just Angus Young, it seems like?
Oh, God. Well, I mean, I didn't even plan to see any of these because, like, I'm not even as into it when Chris Slade is playing drums, and without Malcolm, it's just like, this isn't really the same. I don't have any plans. I mean, I think choosing Axl was genius because I don't really know who else could do it.
Agreed.
So I was down with that, but it's just like I really wish that wasn't happening, and they would just sort of hang it up together, you know.
I agree.
Understandable, man.
Yeah, I saw them at Coachella. I saw them like what was that, the Black Ice tour still? I saw them do Coachella and like that section, and it was good. But like you know, when Chris Slade is drumming, it's just not the same. It doesn't have the same swing. Like I could accept that, but there's too many missing parts right now. It's just like it's a Frankenstein. It's like cobbled together. You know, it's like it's not really working. And I don't really want to see that either. You know, they'll be powerful. Like Angus probably like solo just for 2 hours alone in a stadium, and that would be insane. You know, and he's got enough energy to carry it. But
oh yeah,
I just kind of don't like what it's become.
Understandable, man. Well, yo, thanks so much for doing this and taking the time. Have a blast tonight in Nashville.
Thank you, Ian.
And no problem.
I know.
Man.
Thank you
and,
for bringing him on.
Yeah, and I hope you get to meet Axl tonight. I mean, that would be pretty cool.
Dude, I know. I'm pretty excited. That will be that. I will get starstruck about that, and also like probably scared because you never that guy. You never know what's gonna happen.
Anthony,
thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Good luck, safe flight, and rock out, man.
All right, dude. Bye.
And rock out, man. It was such a tool bag. Check you later. Check you later. It was one of those I didn't know what I was going to finish up saying. You know, yeah, Jobin, whatever it was from I Love You, man. I'm such a herb.
He's going to have a blast, dude.
Oh,
Could you imagine being backstage for this? Because he's going to be backstage.
It's my dream.
So he's going to run into Axl, and...
Did you see the picture of Axl? It was a show in D.C. that he took a picture with Daniel Snyder, the owner of the Redskins.
No, I didn't see that.
Yeah, he took a picture with the owner, the coach, and like their whole family. It's so weird. I mean, that's what he says. Like he would be starstruck, and that's how I feel. I mean, I got flabbergasted when I met Weird Al, or how I just met Blink 182. I mean, but Axl is just like, whoa. I have like visions. I don't know like about you, but we're the same age. So you remember that cartoon Doug, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I go off in these fantasy lands in my brain of just what would happen if, so like what would happen if I met Axl. And I think I would just say like I could retire tomorrow. I wouldn't want to from radio, but I've reached the pinnacle of what I want to achieve, other than fame and fortune, I guess. But it's just the fact that he's going, flying to Nashville.
Wait, what was the Doug connection there?
The Fantasyland.
Yeah. Okay.
His dreams. That was the whole. That was like half the show.
Yeah, where it was like, this is going to be on your permanent record with Mr. Bone.
Yeah. yes.
Okay, got it.
All right. So it's just incredible that he's going, and this is a huge show tonight. We're going to post the show tonight, so you're going to be listening to potentially while the show is going on. Well, whatever. I'm trying to figure out a timeline. This isn't Lost. Who gives a shit? But this is a huge show tonight. What's going on with Adler? What's going on with Izzy? This really is like a soap opera. It really is a mystery. Is our Pee-wee word of the day throughout this episode.
Oh yeah.
And it's just lucky him. He's really lived a blessed life, and you could tell how genuine he is. And he's just like, we were just three dudes talking, and I love that.
Yeah, when you were talking about the starstruck thing with meeting Axl, it reminds me of, I think it was right before we recorded the first episode, I got to see Sebastian Bach live. It was always awesome. But
I've seen him 3 times. He's awesome.
Someone mentioned something about Axl in the crowd, and he said something about, he's like, what's the funny thing about all these people who talk shit about Axl, like online, and at my shows will make some comment. He's like, I hang out with the guy all the time. No one ever talks shit to his face. He's like, every time that they meet him in person, it's, oh my God, I love you. You're the best. He's like,
his dick.
He's like, I have never seen anyone talk shit to his face. He's like, they're way too shook to talk shit to his face.
Because it's so rare of someone, and I'm trying to think about it, not just in music, but a celebrity that has that aura about them. And Axl Rose has that aura about him. And not only that, and there are some people making fun of his weight now, but I mean, it's like he's 50, dude.
But I think he's right. I don't think those people making fun of his weight would ever say it to his face.
And I think
they'd go, oh my God, I love you. Let me get a picture. That's exactly what it would be.
And I think also the ones that hate on him still respect him. This is a guy that still has written some of the best music in the history of rock and roll.
Yeah.
Like, you can't argue that. They're still relevant today, despite not being together, despite all the potential for this to fail, for the Chinese democracy, that could have been for all intents and purposes, it wasn't a flop. Did it do as well as they wanted? No, but they were up against everything. That could.
I remember it was. You know what killed me? Do you remember the week it came out? It was number 2 on Billboard behind Kanye West. I was like, and I actually like Kanye West.
I don't
Some of
get
his
it.
stuff, not like the newest album, but I was just like, come on, man. Really? Why couldn't this be number 1? That killed me a little bit.
No,
Kanye,
it does.
beat them on Billboard.
And I know you said you're a fan, but he's just somebody I guess I can say. I don't get it. It's not even more as a douchebag. I mean, other than that harder, stronger, whatever song, but it's all about the Daft Punk side of it that I like. I just don't get it. I don't get why he's a talent or a genius or why he thinks these things. I don't get it. Dr. Seuss to me rhymes better than he does.
Well, but that's the thing about Kanye. He's not. I think a lot of people mistake him as being like a great rapper.
Or the beats. I mean, like
he's a great producer, songwriter.
Still,
he's writing shit with Paul McCartney. That says something.
I think that just says Paul McCartney has certain people in his ear that says you should work with this guy to keep yourself relevant. And
maybe. I
think that's what that is. I mean,
do you ever see those Twitter things where they're like, I'm glad Kanye's giving this Paul McCartney guy a chance?
Yes, yeah. Oh, my God. And there are people. I think it was happening during like the 12 concert for Sandy. Like, who's this old guy on stage? What the fuck? These young millennials. My God, whatever. Sorry, I'm getting angry. I didn't take my medication today. I told you. I got to take it when I get home. But, yeah, thank you for bringing Anthony on. It was a pleasure to speak to him. And it's so... it's so weird. I read this guy's books before I even knew you. Yeah. And here I am talking to him now, and he's on a plane to see a reunited Guns N' Roses. Just goes to show you. And you never know where life could go.
Oh, too. And before I knew him, I read Tommy Lee and Artie Lange's books and all that. And like I said, that's the reason I booked him on Senator Bill Bradley's show, because I was a fan. I was kind of geeking out to meet the guy. And then when I heard that his father delivered me as a baby, I'm like, what the fuck?
What a weird life.
Yeah.
You just never know. It's incredible. So I'm really looking forward to the future of this band. I'm looking forward to, hopefully, we never know. We always kind of end these shows as we're going to wind down now. How Axl Rose to Kurt Loder when they, quote, came back with Buckethead, and we're going to see Chinese Democracy. I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it. So I'd like to think we'll do another show before we go to see them at MetLife Stadium the 23rd, potentially the 24th as well. But this is just a huge... I tweeted this. What a great time to be a Guns N' Roses fan right now. Oh, yeah. It really is, and you can see the outpouring of love from the fans and appreciative. And we read it at the top of the show, the thanks that we're getting, and we're just fans. We're just like you, and because we are you. We just happen to be in a position to do a podcast about it. And there's something I do also want to mention, because I'm still kind of shiny because I just got more tattoos.
That's right. Yeah.
As I'm working on my never-ending story 3/4.
Brandon has some great tattoos, I will say.
Thank you. I know this is like super local. If anyone hears, Joel, Big Joel from Tattoo Lose Center Reach. He's been doing the majority of my work now. He's just phenomenal. Like he's just. I'm so glad I found him. And my first, I will preface this too. My first tattoo ever was my left shoulder blade, which is the boy writing this book from Use Your Illusion. It's outlined in red, so it's one. Eventually, I want to get the back piece of like November Rain-esque, but whatever. Nobody gives a shit. But you mentioned to Anthony that because I thought you had no work, that you have a Dr. Feelgood tattoo. So can I see it right now? I mean, it's on your back.
Yeah, I mean, my back's a little hairy at the moment because
hairy.
Being half Italian and Jewish.
Okay.
Not a good combination, but...
Is it bad?
Yeah, check it out.
I've seen worse. I mean, mine's not, mine's all right.
What do you think of the tattoo, though, goddammit?
No, I like it. It's a Dr. Feelgood. I like it. Where'd you get it done?
I got that done at Lark.
Yes.
Yeah, where it's Old Country Road, right in...
That's where I got... Look at this. All the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon.
Is it Carl Place?
That's where... You know where? Blah, I'm freaking out. I can't even get the words out right now. That's where I got my first tattoo, my Use Your Illusion.
This was my first. Guy at Lark, by any chance?
I don't remember his name.
Yeah. So anyway,
so is that cool that we got our first tattoos in the same place?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
All right, acknowledge it.
So anyway, you were breaking my balls about the hairiness because I'm Italian and Jewish and not a good combination in terms of hair.
It's not great, but it's not bad.
I got to get it waxed in the coming weeks because if I shave it, it just grows back super thick, which I used to do. So I end up going to this waxing place. And
is it weird? Is it awkward to go in there?
It is.
The other guys?
It's usually all women, but this part is TMI. But you guys, whatever. I'll get into it. So every time I go in there to get my back and shoulders waxed, this woman asks about if I want to do like the men's Brazilian bikini where they literally wax your balls.
It's the summer?
And I'm like, nah.
Wait.
I think I'm good on that.
It's the balls? It's not like, the part between the leg that with the groin,
dude. It's the whole area, man.
Oh my god! Because I shave down there. It's not like a baby, but I can be kempt.
It's the waxing version of that. So hot wax on your balls.
That part would feel good. But the pulling would feel bad.
But here's the thing: she's always telling me about it. She's like, "Oh, it's not that.
She just wants to see your balls, dude.
This woman is dying to see my cock. I don't know why.
Do it up, man. Do it up. Hey, surrounded by women. This is just like she wants to pull wax in your fucking sack.
No,
do it, man.
No.
All right, whatever.
Back is one thing.
When in Rome.
Yeah, I'm not going for that. But dude, every fucking time I'm in there.
If Axl Rose shaved his balls, would you do it?
I don't need to do what Axl Rose does just because I love the man. He's got.
I just want to see what your line is.
No, I don't need to.
Fair enough.
I don't do a lot of things that Axl Rose does. You don't see me walking in here with like huge gold chains on and.
When I had long hair and he inspired me to
cornrows.
No.
I guess if you were to tell me you did cornrows, I would have loved to have seen that.
It was like I look like Scott Stapp, but I would refer to myself as Axl Rosenberg.
There is a guy who writes his Axl Rosenberg.
I know. I saw that.
Metal Sucks.
I thought I was clever, and then I saw that. So whatever.
Yeah.
Linear thinking.
By the way, what do you think of all those sites? Like, I love Metal Sludge. Like, they have a great sense of humor, and actually, I'd love to get Stevie Rochelle on the podcast.
Is Metal Sludge the site that has the list of all the sizes?
Yes. So why did everybody always mention that? Because they do so much more than just that.
I know that, but that's a huge. I don't know how to just. I've read it. What that makes me is whatever. But I guess that's a thing. I don't know. That's like a big thing to be part of. That's unique.
We haven't discussed who we'll have in the next podcast, but I would maybe Stevie Rochelle from Tough, who runs Metal Sludge.
Because you've been bringing on these guests, man. I can't. I appreciate it. I'm not going to take. Yes, we're a team, but I will give you credit for getting on these guests.
Yeah, and you edited it, whatever. So. But he has some great stories from over the years with Adler, which would be really relevant. Like, he's interviewed Adler, he has audio. I've talked to Stevie, and he has audio of Adler talking about like some of the crazy shit he was doing to get drugs back in the day. And
yeah, I read his book, and I would love to hear it from the man himself. So let's reach out to him, whether it's the next podcast or whenever it is. So let's do it up.
Maybe Stevie Rochelle. But anyway, so back to what I was saying. We're all scatterbrained here, but I was wondering what you think of all those sites, because there's like Metal Sludge. And then there's Metal Sucks and Metal Injection. Like, I think Metal Sludge does things in a humorous way, but it's not as much like anger. Some of these sites, it's almost like, are you even a fan? Like, if all you do is bash the band and
I see it. I mean, Blabbermouth doesn't do that because they just report the stories.
It's just the comments.
It's just the comments, and I think that's what's hurt, in my opinion. And I think we may have touched upon this in the first episode. What has hurt rock and metal? Even it's not every fan, but just the vitriol that comes out. Because I think, if you're on the outskirts of that scene, you see rock, you see the tattoos, you see the angry music, you just put this blanket statement over everybody. It's just angry. I don't want to be part of that scene. The metal scene is one of the most loving scenes if you're really part of it, like ever. And it's just, I want to get away from that. Just like everyone has to troll and everything. Everything sucks. We've become a civilization of literally Beavis and Butthead. This sucks. It's like Damon Stain sucks. All these. It's not everything. Some things do suck, but I think there's a way to approach it if you want to. And as and I can't consider myself a journalist, especially since we just had Anthony Bozza on. But as a wannabe journalist, I was trained in broadcast journalism. You want to be smart how you approach these stories. You don't have to do a fluff piece. But I mean, a good author, like Chuck Klosterman. I remember the piece that he wrote about Chinese democracy was just brilliant. I mean, and he approached it in just such a smart way, and it's not just saying this sucks. It's not this. It's not that. Approach it with some integrity and intelligence, and how whatever comes out, at least it's real, and I can take part of that. So I don't know if you're talking about a specific article, but I want this community. The rock and roll, the Guns N' Roses community seems to be pulling together now. But the rock and roll community as a whole and these sites as a whole to just, have a common thread. And that's to make Make fucking rock and roll relevant again in this country, god damn it. You know, like, it's just enough already. It's enough. I'm tired of seeing, fucking Kanye West. I know you like him, whatever.
EDM, all that
EDM,
stuff.
all this garbage. These are just like one-and-done artists. I know Taylor Swift she has talent, but I feel like she writes her lyrics with a crayon.
And she's the only, if I remember correctly, the only artist who had a platinum album in 2015. If I'm right.
I don't know, but I mean, it's just enough already.
Which is so crazy. Yeah, there's only one artist who gets a platinum album. But now they're tracking streams, so I think it's different because I think Drake went platinum.
But we live in. All right, here's the thing, and we'll end on this note.
Well, I have one more thing I got to bring up before ending on this note.
Okay. Well, then I'm on my night train right now. We're on Long Island right now, so Long Island has some rocks. Well, we're the only rock station, face it. WB 102.3 WBAB, Long Island's only classic rock. But New York City
opinions expressed on this podcast.
But exactly. But New York City, other than for a classic rock, doesn't have another rock. Doesn't have a big rock station. K-Rock died. We're the #1 market. What's going on here?
Yeah.
So I want that to change.
All right. The last thing I was going to mention is how this podcast goes full circle. So you remember how last show you mentioned seeing Whitford St. Holmes?
Yep.
Did you see Slash got on stage with them?
I didn't see it.
Yeah, but that's pretty cool, man.
That is cool.
That we
just
tweeted
about
things, and there's some Guns N' Roses connection there, which is pretty cool because you know that he loves those guys in Aerosmith, and
they toured together back in the day.
Yeah,
and that was when Aerosmith was sober, and they said, "Keep these guys away from us."
There was this great story that Joe Perry had. This great story he told on Howard Stern about Slash buying one of his guitars, and that him holding on to it, wouldn't give it back to him, and then at a birthday party gave it back to him. Like, that was a pretty cool story. So there's always, I don't know, there's just always these connections with these bands, and they're a fan of Aerosmith. And
I see and again, to tie back to what I just said, you see these collaborations or even just on a lower level, these these stories between these artists now, between Future and Ciara and all these crap. Excuse me. Well, I'm going to leave that in. And you have these moments, these real moments within rock, and we need to character build. We need to have these faces of Guns N' Roses still relevant, and these younger bands and these older bands. It's just like this awesome community and awesome stories to be told, and we want to be, a vessel for that, to use that word twice in one show.
Dude, with the talk of an Aerosmith final tour, could you imagine if they got together with Guns N' Roses and did, like another arena tour or something? That would be...
I mean, just the fact that these are possibilities now is just exciting. And I think we should be, as you started the show with, grateful for that, with all that's going on in the world, that there are, bands and music out there, because music means a lot to a lot of people. Yes, it's hard to describe what music can do to some people.
Oh, yeah, and to go full circle from what I mentioned at the top of the show, music gets people through really hard times, things in this country that are going on, and really gets your mind off, these police shootings, the police brutality stuff going on.
And it can inspire you to do something that you may not have previously done.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, and again, to what we just started with, just even if, and hopefully I don't think it's going to be the case, that Adler doesn't make another appearance. His story, what he's gone through, and I don't like people looking down upon addicts. You don't know their story. You don't know that it's a disease. It's difficult. That he's been able to get to this point and be back on stage with Axl Rose, Slash, and Duff in front of a crowd like that, playing Guns N' Roses, in Guns N' Roses again, albeit for just at this moment while we're recording this for 2 songs, speaks volumes to what you can achieve. And the fact that his mom put that out on Facebook shows what it means to people's families too. So I mean, that's awesome. I feel like we should need to have like the Bob Saget or the Eddie Winslow, Carl Winslow hug it now. It's like dun, 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 hug. We ended on such a positive note here.
Yeah.
On Appetite for Distortion.
We did. So follow us on Twitter, of course, at the AFD Show, on Facebook, Appetite for Distortion with Scotto and with Brando and Scotto. Getting her, but and
iTunes.
Or you can just go to facebook.com/the AFD Show, I should say, and on iTunes. And please leave a review on iTunes for Appetite for Distortion, because I really want to get on that chart, on that top 150, I think it is, music podcast chart, because then there's going to be people who scroll through that, who are Guns N' Roses fans, sees that there's a podcast like this that actually exists, and we can get new listeners, and who knows where this thing is going to go.
And the more stuff we're able to do, the more stuff we can do for you. And I wanted that to sound creepy. So
sexual favors,
whatever. It's 2016, whatever. All right, so thank you again, and thank you again to Anthony Bozza, who's currently on the flight to Nashville to see Guns N' Roses at Lucky SOB. We will see you soon, or as Axl Rose says, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.
You've been listening to the distorted minds of Brando and Scotto, dissecting all things Guns N' Roses on Appetite for Distortion. Follow the guys on Twitter at The AFD Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/The AFD Show.
Thanks to the lame-ass security, I'm going home.